Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now. Where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
Yes, indeed. I'm always laughing when I hear the voice of my co-producer, Ryan Treasure, the VP, I say VP of everything at World Talk Radio, voiceamerica.com. I am Bonnie D. Graham, Bonnie in the house, and we have quite a topic for you today. If you're in business, if you're thinking about being in business, if you know somebody's in business, they're an owner, they're a manager, they're a dreamer about being in business, this topic is for all of you. So I have two buzz quotes from an article at Impact BND. I think it's impactbind.com, and it's a blog they wrote. Here we go. Number one quote: social media is ever changing. There's always a new crazy way people can document every aspect of their lives. But what if you're a business? With so many social media sites already out there and even more popping up each day, where do you begin? And again, this is addressing businesses. Do you create a Facebook account, or do you hop on whatever the new Pinterest is today? And here's the second quote: utilizing social media in your business strategy gives you the chance, here's the meat of the bones here, gives you a chance to connect with fans, customers, and prospective clients on a more personal human level. Human level is important. So let me give you some popularity stats in case you're wondering, where should your business invest your time, your energy, your people, your strategy? So YouTube right now has 2 billion registered users. Okay. Facebook, a mere 1.7 billion. Okay. We're going to get down into the millions now. Twitter has 310 million. Instagram, 500 million. But they're 18 to 29 years old. That could be good for you if that's where you're selling. Flickr has 100 million, Pinterest has 84 million, and LinkedIn a mere 20 million. Oh my. So I have three panelists on today. One has to leave us in a few minutes, so we'll see what we could do to get most thought leadership from him in the time we have. We're going to ask experts Kirsten Boileau at SAP. Kirsten is the sponsor of my series, Digital Selling, Changing the Game with Digital Selling, for many years, and we're happy to have her here. Mark, the sales hunter, a mind for sales. He's the one who has to leave us soon, but we're going to see what we can get out of him and with him before he goes. And Nico Lagerston is back at Digitize. He was on a few weeks ago. I'm going to ask them to spin the digital selling wheel of fortune. No, we don't have Vanna White on the show. Don't get excited. With an eye toward 2025. So that's our topic today. Bonnie in the house with Kirsten, with Mark, and with Nico. Kirsten Boileau, why don't you briefly just tell everybody who you are in case they don't know you on this particular radio show. How are you?
I'm great, Bonnie. Thank you. Kirsten Boileau, part of SAP. I'm in global marketing, and I'm responsible for upskilling our marketing department on digital marketing, as well as our sales organization on digital selling, and have been running those programs for the last 6 years for digital selling, and the last year for digital marketing. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Kirsten, quick question. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, digital, iPhones, smartphones, LinkedIn, Instagram. Do you have a favorite you recommend for businesses, just off the top? One favorite? I think I know the answer, but what do you suggest?
LinkedIn all the way.
Okay. I knew that. We'll be talking about that. Thank you. Mark Hunter, you're the one who has to leave us soon. Mark, quick bio, and what's your favorite platform for businesses?
Sure. I'm known as the sales hunter, so that means I must have a passion for sales. That's what I do. I help companies and help salespeople find and retain better prospects. My preferred platform, LinkedIn. My second platform, LinkedIn. My third platform, LinkedIn. I love it.
I think I have to change the title of this episode, LinkedIn all the way. We got to expand that a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll talk more. Thank you. And Nico Lagerston is with us. Nico, please briefly introduce yourself, and what's your favorite platform?
Sure thing. Well, my favorite platform has to be LinkedIn, but I'm a senior sales rep. Been working at LinkedIn and some other SaaS companies, and today I run my own digital selling consultancy where we focus on social selling strategies, LinkedIn training, and also some traditional sales consulting. So I have to say LinkedIn, Bonnie. I have to agree with all of you.
Oh,
to be a bit
my goodness.
That's the truth.
Well, it's a good answer from all of you, but let me change the dynamics here a little bit, or the parameters, if you will. First Kirsten, then Mark, then Nico. We're going to go a little bit out of order of the usual format of the show because I want to maximize our time with Mark, and then we'll just continue without him. But Kirsten and Mark and Nico, if you're a small business, if you're a startup, if you're a tech startup, if you're manufacturing some kind of world-changing sandals, or if you're doing something to help people who are stay-at-home moms or dads, and you start out as a very small business, where should you be? Is it really just going to be LinkedIn for these people, or should you be on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Flickr, Facebook, YouTube, just something, programs sending out, sputtering out blasts from your phone to everybody you can get their text messages? Kirsten, where would you suggest for a smaller business or a startup?
Figure out where your audience is. That's where you go. If your audience is on LinkedIn, then that's where you should be. If they're not, stay-at-home moms and dads are not going to be on LinkedIn. That's not their place. They might be on Snapchat, on Twitter, on Instagram. Those are the places where you need to be. It all depends on where your audience is.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Mark, agree or disagree with Kirsten?
Yes, I totally agree, and I'm going to jump on that even further. It's really about knowing your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and wherever they live, that's the message. You can have 5 different messages for 5 different platforms for 5 different ICPs. Target the message specifically. Deliver it to the medium in which they're on.
Okay. Nico, where do you sit or stand on this issue? Where your audience is? How do you find them? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I mean, a lot of my audience is going to be on LinkedIn, but they're going to be on Instagram as well. And circling back to your question, it really depends on what you're comfortable with, because LinkedIn is more of, creating thoughtful and educated pieces of content. But maybe Instagram is a easier introduction because you can do a lot and reach a lot of people just taking pictures with, good captions. Mm-hmm. So it depends a little bit who you are as a person, and I would that's an important part of the equation.
Thank you, all three. Let me flip that question around and ask if you're a newish company, newish business, and you want to create a brand that will attract certain people, but you're not sure where they are. Now, one of you, I think Mark mentioned, you can have multiple messages for different social platforms, Mark. So if you decide that your brand is going to be something that's friendly and casual, and you have 3-word messages, that's all you want to do, would you be predisposed, or should you focus your energy, your time, your commitment, your finances, your team on platforms that will highlight and spotlight those 3-word messages? Would you become a Twitter aficionado? Would you post pictures on Pinterest, on Insta that have 3-word captions? In other words, does the brand come first, or do the prospects come first? Kirsten?
I personally believe that the prospects come first. It's always about your customer. You need to figure out what's important to them, what is on their radar, and that's how you can really focus in on what's going to be the most relevant for them, and then ultimately that will be the most engaging.
Thank you. Great answer. Mark, let's go around to you. What do you think?
Yes, it's always the prospect first, but let's break that down a little further, because I can reach prospects on Instagram with 3-word memes, with visual pictures. I can do the same thing on Pinterest. If that message is going to go to a different ICP on LinkedIn, then it's going to be a longer form. It's going to be more content-driven. If it's Facebook, it's going to be more personally driven. In other words, there are different mediums that match to different styles, and that's what you have to do. The whole thing is you got to be authentic. Be authentic on whatever platform you're on.
Thank you very much. And authentic, what does that mean, Mark? We hear it all the time. I read books, and I'm one of my personal radio show, Read My Lips Radio. I used to have mostly self-help authors, and they were all talking about be your best self, be your authentic self, be your true self, find the miracle of the day and climb to the top of the mountain and look out and say, this is who I am. To me, authentic is almost as ubiquitous and overused as amazing. I try not to tell people they're amazing because it's just overused. What does authentic mean in this? Let's go around the table, Mark, and then Nico, and then Kirsten. What does authentic mean?
Well, authentic means let them understand who you are under the sleeve, under the collar. Who are you? You know, it's easy to be authentic when everything's going great. It's more difficult to be authentic when things are not going great. What they want to see is they want to see who you are as an individual. You are your own brand. We can't forget. The first brand we represent is printed on our driver's license, and it's our name. Represent that brand well. Make your mom proud.
I love it. Nico, let's go back to the previous question. Brand first or prospects first when you're creating your brand? And what do you think about the word authentic, Nico? I know you are. I know all three of you are. But, Nico, how do you define that? Any question first is fine. Go ahead.
When it comes to brand or prospect first, I think that Kirsten and Mark said it very well. So I don't have too much to add to that. But if we look at, what authenticity is, I mean, isn't it being, having integrity, standing your ground, both in good times and bad times, and show them who you are and what you really believe in, with not weighing in too much what people are going to think about you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go. Mark, I'm going to go to your first prediction. I know you have to leave in about 3.5 minutes here. We're watching the clock, Mark. Your first prediction about the topic is authenticity will become even more important. People are turned off by fake, by bots, and anything artificial. Now, Mark, we've heard reports in recent years, not so much recently, that certain celebrities have teams that post their tweets and post their Facebook entries, and that it's not the real Britney Spears and it's not the real whoever it is, and that people can tell it's canned and it's maybe created by artificial intelligence, and they resent that. Is that what we're talking about here? Artificial by someone else, not you? And how do people know? How do they know the difference, Mark?
Well, and it's not just stuff that's artificially created by other people, but it's what you post. Because how many times have you followed somebody on Twitter, or Facebook, or LinkedIn, and then suddenly they get into a situation where the restaurant just serves them a terrible meal or their flight gets canceled, and suddenly they tee off. Well, okay, that may be authentic, but is that the voice that you want to have lasting out there? Mm-hmm. I learned this long ago. If you would not allow it to be said in front of your mom, don't say it. And we have to somewhat temper our comments. So am I saying it's a little bit of fake authenticity? No, it's not fake authenticity, but it's think long term, because your message is going to hang out there. And being authentic is so critical now because there's so many different platforms. You can't do anything without being seen, without being heard. Mm-hmm. Boy, I mean, this is George Orwell, 1984. We're living in it right now.
And it's permanent. Do you think that college kids, there's been a big debate for years that college kids, teenagers don't understand those pictures with too many bottles and too many glasses in the picture, or saying stupid things that get posted on social media before they go into the workforce, before they start their own business, before they get hired, before they become a consultant or an analyst or an industry observer. Those are going to follow them the rest of their life. Is that still a lesson to be learned, Mark? I know you got to leave in a minute and a half.
That's still a lesson to learn, because look at the politicians that have had comments made 30 years ago, a voting record 30 years ago, that suddenly comes back to haunt them. Yes, I mean, it does. We have to be careful. Nothing. The only stuff that dies is the stuff you don't want to, and the stuff that you don't want to live forever.
Kirsten, you want to comment on any comments Mark made about authenticity and things staying with you, Kirsten?
Oh, I think he's absolutely spot on with that prediction, that authenticity is going to become even more important. People crave that human-to-human connection, whether they're buying from a B2B situation, or it's a more personal situation, buying a car or whatever it might be. People crave that human-to-human connection. We don't get enough of it, partly because of the tools that we're talking about today. It's made relationships easier in some ways and less easy in other ways. And I think that people still crave that human connection. And when you're not authentic, if you try to be someone else, people can spot it from a mile away, because it just comes across as fake and trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes so that they can't really see the true you.
Very interesting. You should say that. I'm going to point out to the three of you that I have posted your bios on the voiceamerica.com guest directory, okay, for the show, and that those bios stay around for a long, long time. And in this age of privacy, what is that? Isn't even a thing anymore. In GDPR that started in Europe, I have people sometimes that say, would you please take down my bio? Very rarely, but once in a while. Nico, I'm going to use you as an example. And Mark, I know you need to drop in about 30 seconds, but Nico says in his bio, Nicholas Lagersten, or Nico as people call him, is the rebellious sales rep that always has gone his own way. Nico, that's going to stay with you the rest of your life. Do you know that?
Yeah, I know, and it's fine.
I just wanted to point that out as an example. Mark, do you want to tell us where you're going? So I'll continue the conversation with Kirsten and Nico. Okay, Mark, wherever you're going, I know he's a conference speaker somewhere and the schedule was changed. So Mark Hunter, thank you very much. Yes, he left. Bye, Mark. Okay, so Kirsten and Nico, the two of you, and I know we're going to continue to have a really good time on this topic, very lively already. Kirsten Boileau, let's go to the quotes, the opening quotes. I don't want to neglect those because you and Nico put time into selecting your quotes. So an inspirational quote from Kirsten is a quote from Neil Armstrong. Neil Alden Armstrong, 1930 to 2012, was an American astronaut and aeronautical engineer, and even the young people on our audience may know that Neil Armstrong was the first person to walk on the moon. There you go. Very interesting background. I'm not going to read it, but you can all look him up. So here's the quote. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Kirsten, how does this relate to our topic, please?
Well, I got thinking about, the continuous evolution of platforms and tools that we use to connect, and how it started a long time ago with those initial very first platforms that were out there, and for every time there's a new tool, a new platform, it's just another step towards that giant leap forward. And as those things evolve, those connections are made, and those that greater good is we're constantly seeking to see if we can make things happen with this new tool. And I just think that whole process of getting that person to the moon, it's all of the math and all of the engineering that went into that. It really kind of the same idea for all these platforms and tools that we leverage today. There's a whole lot of thinking and engineering that goes into building those platforms, and so every time we find a new one, it's one step. We hope it's one step forward. They're not always one step forward, but we hope it's one step forward.
That's true. We'll talk about flavor. Thank you, Kirsten. We'll talk about flavor of the day platforms a little bit later. Thank you very much, Nico. I'm just going to read the quote Mark Hunter sent me, even though he's not around to talk about it. It's a quote from Og Mandino. Augustine Og, O.G. was his nickname, Mandino II, 1923 to 96, an American author. He wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World. Somebody gave me that book as a gift years ago. A little teeny tiny book. It sold over all of his books have sold over 50 million copies and been translated into more than 25 languages. And Og Mandino was the president of the Success Unlimited magazine and an inductee of the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. Here's the quote Mark selected. Always do your best. What you plant now, you will harvest later. And I think we can interpret that as a vote for authenticity. Now let's go around to Nico has sent us a quote from Chuck Palahniuk's 1999 book, Invisible Monsters. I'd never heard of this, Nico. Invisible Monsters is a novel published by Chuck Palahniuk. I hope I say that right. In 1999, his third novel, though it was his second written after his book Insomnia. If you lived here, you'd better be home already. You'd be home already. It was rejected by the publisher for being too disturbing. And then after the success of his novel Fight Club, Invisible Monsters was given a second chance and a revision was published. And it has something to do with a catwalk model who has a boyfriend, a career, a loyal best friend, but a sudden accident leaves her disfigured, incapable of speech. She goes from being the beautiful center of attention to being an invisible monster. And we'll leave that from there. And here's the quote Nico has selected. When did the future switch from being a promise to being a threat? Oh, Nico. Wow,
Yes.
I learned a lot from this one. What does this mean for our listeners talking about social media digital platforms for businesses?
Yeah, you sure thing. And I think that, way back, I think that people were, really looking forward to the future as a bright and better place. And we're not going to go into politics and general, the social environment today. But people are a bit more pessimistic. And, I meet a lot of people in my job that, don't want their sales reps spending time on LinkedIn. They don't want their reps to have great LinkedIn profiles because they're scared that, okay, but what if we, update their profiles, for example, and really show who they are and they look really good? Aren't the competition going to steal them? That's a very, very common, objection sometimes. And I always say, like, it's the same thing that you have, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, take a sports analogy that, shouldn't you train Zlatan when he's playing for Milan to score a lot of goals as possible when he's playing for your club? It's inevitable that people are going to, find great talent. And, a lot of people are, afraid of investing in video solution because the physical meeting is where everything happens. And I can debunk that right away because I don't know how many deals I've done completely over the phone and over the video, and it really works. And it also taps into, if we're going to be environmental friendly and stuff like that. So I think we need to boil down and cut through the noise and really, think it through and figure out what kind of platform is going to work for us and what kind of workflow we should have working with them. So that's where that quote comes from. Maybe a bit far-fetched, but I liked it.
Thank you. Did you read the book? Is that something on your reading list, or do you recommend it to people, Nico?
Well, just because of the Fight Club, as you said, so I haven't read it, actually.
Okay, well, that's on the reading list for everybody on this call, is to read Invisible Monsters, if you dare. Okay, Kirsten, let's go around to you. I think we're going to just dive right into our prediction segment on the show, and then it's only 25 after. Yeah, we may not take a break. So let me start with your first prediction you sent me, Kirsten. You say digital sales reps trying to stay ahead of or on top of the curve of customer expectation. I think that's the key here, Kirsten. Need to ensure they don't get distracted by the next shiny new object. So many apps, so many tools, so many theories demanding attention. They will solve our problems, but do they really? Kirsten, why don't you expand this for us, please? Great start to the formal predictions part of the show.
Yeah, I think that's something that we as operations teams, as enablement teams, need to keep in mind. I get bombarded weekly from reps saying, "Hey, I love using this tool. I think it's amazing, and I'd love to see it, scaled out globally to the rest of the sales organization." And as we dig a little bit deeper, it's not something that can be supported from an enterprise level, and so some of these things are. It's just something that we have to keep in mind, right? We have to, if it's something that truly is going to be valuable, how does it fit into our overall strategy? And if it fits in there, do we actually have something already in-house that can do something similar, but we just haven't used it in that way? There's all kinds of those things happening all the time. And so we need to keep that in mind as we, as an operations team and enablement teams and management and leadership, constantly looking to improve and yet not being distracted by those shiny new objects all the time.
Kirsten, is there a temptation, do you think, let me ask you a question, for new companies, young companies that are starting to find their footing, if you will, in digital selling, social media? Do you think there is that temptation? Somebody comes into work and said, "Hey, I just heard about this brand new platform. It's better than Pinsta. It's better than Pinterest. It's better than Instagram, and it's called Footsie Tootsie." I'm making this up. Footsie Onesie. and everybody's going to be on it, and all the influencers are going to be on it, and all the people with the young millennials and the Gen Yers and Zers who have expendable money. They have discretionary funding. They're trust fund babies. I'm just making this up, Kirsten. They're going to be there, and that's where we need to put all our energy. Should the people who started the company say, "Oh, yeah, Bob, that's great. We'll just stop doing everything on all the other platforms. Let's give it a try for a week." Do you think that's happening?
I'm very far removed from the startup world, but I wouldn't think so. I mean, maybe not stopping everything else. They might experiment with something along those lines, but I would hesitate to say that they would stop everything else, because those other things they wouldn't be investing in them if they weren't being successful. And so, to just stop everything else and go with this shiny new object, I don't think that's happening. However, I do think that it does come into play. Well, especially in a big company like I'm in, in pockets, right? One particular sales team will be utilizing this shiny new object, and it might go against, certain policies or whatever, or it is. Sometimes we run up against those apps that scrape LinkedIn data, and we're LinkedIn's biggest customer. And so we cannot have those kinds of things within our walls, and because those things are illegal from a LinkedIn perspective, and those show up occasionally. And so there's all those kinds of things that need to be, like, there's legal implications as well. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that if we're constantly giving new tools to our sales reps, they're going to spend more time learning how to leverage those tools in an efficient way, rather than actually delivering on their KPIs. And that's something to keep in mind too.
Thank you very much. Great answer. Nico, let's get your thoughts on what Kirsten just brought up about the shiny new object. I think you've been in the startup world. What do you see?
That is a great point, and I'm happy you brought it up, Kirsten, because it is exactly like you say. We're being bombarded with new tools, but I mean, you're in a big company, SAP, that have, sales enablement teams that actually are responsible for, rolling out and planning and make sure it goes as smooth as possible. But if you look at, mid-sized companies and smaller companies, they don't have sales enablement. The sales director, the sales manager, both sales operations, sales enablement, and everything in between. And a lot of things looks good on paper. It's very easy to talk about, ROI. You can quantify a lot of things pretty easily, but are you going to get, your return on effort on it? How is it actually going to, work inside the organization? Are we going to handle the rollout? And the answer to that is, unfortunately, a lot of times no. And that's why we see so many high amount of churn in different kind of SaaS products, because the product is great. It's nothing wrong with the product or the service. Maybe it actually solve a couple of % of a problem, but you have to stack it up and benchmark it to other kinds of tools we have that maybe solve a little bit more % of that problem. So yeah.
Thank you both. I'm going to chime in here, Kirsten and Nico. I just found an article. Kirsten knows how fast I find things. Social Media Week. This is from December 18th, 2019. So how many weeks ago? 14 weeks ago. Here's the title. Sit still and put your seatbelt on, ladies and gentlemen. 5 social media platforms your brand should consider in 2020. And they say photo sharing, streaming, blogging, and more. Don't overlook these social platforms as we head into 2020. One is TikTok, no surprise. The second one is Lasso, quietly launched in November 2018 via a tweet from a product manager on the team. It serves as Facebook's take on TikTok. The third one is Vero. They say if you don't remember it, don't worry, you're not alone. It's the antidote to Facebook and Instagram. It's a photo sharing app built on a no ads, no algorithms model. The next one is Caffeine. Oh, bring it on. Started by former Apple designer Ben Crayon. It's the newest social broadcasting platform on the block, and as of November 2019, emerged out of a 2-year beta trial. It raised $146 million from lead investors. I won't read the names. The next one is Steemit, Steemit. Founded back in 2016, it's a blockchain-based social media platform modeled loosely on Reddit. Steemit rewards users with the native virtual currency Steem, STEEM, when they curate popular content. It can be used to earn votes on the platform platform to purchase real gifts, and credits can be purchased with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies and shared with others on the platform. A living, breathing, growing social economy. I know we're not going to focus on these, but Kirsten, any comments on the overview I just read of these 5 brand new social media platforms? What do you think?
Apparently, I am completely out of it because I've not heard of any of them.
TikTok's the only one I've ever heard of. Nico, you're probably closer to this.
I've heard of TikTok, but
yes.
The other ones, I'm like, nope.
Nope. I agree. Nico, what do you think? Are these strange names to you? Steam It and Caffeine and Lasso and Vero? What do you think?
They are. So don't feel anything near. I've heard about TikTok, but I really like the idea of a Reddit base where you actually get upvoted and you get rewarded for it, because that drives in a little bit towards, what Mark is so keen on talking about, authenticity. And I mean, what we see on social media, it's full of crap, to be honest. And that is, one of the biggest issues that, I follow some different kind of future scientists and stuff like that. And just before the show, when I did some research, a Swedish guy called Alexander Bard, he said that, almost 98% of all the pictures on Instagram go unseen. And I think that, smaller networks, smaller communities where you get rewarded for really, really good content is an excellent idea. And one of my favorite platforms that I use quite frequently is the one that called Medium, which is, where you can read a lot about articles. And they have smart ways of upvoting certain paragraphs and comments within a blog post to see what people really like, and you can start, smaller discussions around, just a meaning or a phrase, and then, so I really believe in smaller communities and promoting people actually creating good content with not just likes, but actually something that is tangible, like maybe Bitcoin or something like that.
Thank you. Interesting. I'm going to read your number one prediction, Nico. I think that. Isn't that cool, Kirsten? I'm going to read. We're learning and talking at the same time. Nico, I'm going to read your number one prediction because this is something we need to talk about right now in the show. Your number one prediction is Instagram, as we know it, will be gone by 2025. Nico, what are you thinking? Talk to me.
Yes. Oh my God, what am I thinking? Well, I mean, if we look at both Instagram and we take Facebook for example, we see that. Instagram, I think they were first with, the video story option, and they also have, Instagram TV, and also Facebook are starting with more of a story mode where you can actually upload more short stories. And I just think that if you look at the whole influencer marketing trend with all kinds of media, I'm sure you can better drive ROI now from a influencer marketing campaign than traditional news ad, but there are a big problem, with buying fake likes. I mean, me and Kirsten can go out and start an Instagram account. We can buy 2,000 followers from India, and we can, talk about maybe sunglasses and get maybe, if we're lucky, some sunglass company to sponsor us. And they see that we get 100 likes from fake audiences, and that's always going to be a problem. But and also, if we look at if we look at mental illness, mental health, there's been a skyrocketing trouble. I'm sure it's in the US as well. If you look at young adults or young people that are completely burnt out, are depressed, and a lot of scientists are connecting this to social media. That people, we're spending so much time there, we're not having that human connection, and we're just, seeing a completely PR-based perfect life that everybody seems to have, but it's not true.
Yes.
So that is some of my thoughts, and
thank you.
Something like that. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Kirsten, Instagram, as Nico says, will be gone by 2025. That's less than 5 years from now. What do you think, Kirsten? Do you think anything else will be gone?
I hadn't really thought about that kind of perspective, Nico, but that's really interesting. As the caveat as we know it, I think is quite possible. I mean, different than it was a year ago. Oh, was it a year ago? When they took off the number of likes off the viewing platform, right? So it's already changed from how it was for, the initial 5-10 years that it has been around. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been around. So I think, quite possibly and quite probably it will be different than it is today. And I absolutely agree that, social media, it's almost causing social media sickness. It's like an illness, a disease. And, sharing that perfect life and that whole authenticity topic we talked about earlier, those things all come into play. And I'm not sure that it would be just Instagram. I mean, Facebook is, it could be such a
Say
downer,
it. Say it.
You're having.
Say it.
Go ahead. And so, I suspect that in time, that platforms will have to take responsibility for and accountability for the mental health issues that they've not directly caused, but have had have participated in. Because we as human beings, we've chosen to be on those platforms, and we've chosen to do those things, and so that all contributes. But having that platform available to us in the first place was part of the problem. So I think that there's there's going to have to be some changes, and there's going to have to be some accountability taken, and that will make things, the social platforms, the way we see them today, completely different in the future.
Kirsten, so well put. Nico, you talk, because I have a couple comments for Kirsten, but I hear you, Nico. What would you like to say?
I just want to comment on Kirsten, and I think you're completely right. And if we look at responsibility that some companies have taken, I think it was pretty cool, actually, that Apple, I don't know if it was their iOS 12 update, it was 2019, where they came with the new feature screen time, as I'm sure you said, as I'm sure you've seen on your iPhone devices now, and you can actually limit the time you spend on different kind of apps. And I have a limitation on Instagram for 20 minutes per day, and when that time is up, I get a notification your time is up, but I can easily overrun it. But the cool thing is that from a parent perspective, that you can definitely now, via this feature, lock down actually how much screen time your children have if you are sharing say an Apple ID and stuff like that. So Apple have realized this and have started taking responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Go ahead,
I came across that in I was setting up an iPad the other day. I was like, oh, this is really, really helpful, because as a parent you get distracted by you're cooking dinner or whatever, and all of a sudden 45 minutes goes by and you're like, oh, I meant to tell them 20 minutes ago to stop.
So. Exactly. Yeah.
I just want to say to both of you that Kirsten, I find Facebook, I call it a happy person bulletin board in a sense. I really don't care who ate chicken wings at a certain cafe or what the menu looked like and who woke up to a bluebird on their roof, but that's what I see in the community where I am. And I used to work for a community newspaper that was part of a big network of local community newspapers in New York. I won't say where. And only the happy stuff got printed. You weren't allowed to have controversy, and the letters to the editor were monitored, and nothing really negative. If you said anything about a bad experience, like pre-Yelp, that wouldn't allowed to be printed because you couldn't say anything because we didn't have both sides. Maybe that was the best way, the fairest way to do it. I don't know. But the point is that I look at Facebook and I say, how many thumbs up and hearts do I have to click today so the people who know I'm on the platform will know that I care about them and I'm thinking about them and I like them and I think they have the most beautiful family in the world and they have the best taste in restaurants and their color of their new kitchen is the most gorgeous color I've ever seen painted in the history of indoor plumbing. So, Kirsten, I just find, So you think Facebook will actually go away, Kirsten? Do you think we'll just get tired of it?
I don't think it'll go away. However, I mean, the demographic for Facebook is getting higher and higher, right? Older and older, you might say.
Yep.
And as they expire, in a politically correct way to put it, I'm not
Kirsten,
sure
be
that
nice.
there will be a. I'm not sure that there will be a younger contingent to come in and take their place.
Okay, interesting. Maybe they'll have a little more savvy in what they post. Let's just leave it there. I don't want to make any enemies. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Nico. I'm looking at, Kirsten, let's go to your prediction number 3. This is interesting. And by the way, to our audience, if you're just tuning in, this is Technology Revolution, the future of now. That's the way Ryan says it. And our topic today is Digital Selling Wheel of Fortune 2025. Instagram, LinkedIn, iPhone, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or all of the new platforms we just found out even exist. I'm speaking right now with Kirsten Boileau at SAP and Nico Lagerston at Digitize. And in the beginning of the show, we were privileged with the attendance of Mark Hunter, the sales hunter, who had to go and do a speaking engagement. So technically, we have 3 panelists, but we're down to 2. So let's go to your prediction number 3, Kirsten. I like this one. You say the social tools and platforms that can be leveraged by a sales rep. That's really our topic today, although we are getting kind of extending the boundaries, can be divided along the lines of B2B and B2C. And you say wisely, LinkedIn is more of a B2B platform, whereas Instagram and Snapchat are more geared toward B2C. So I want you to explain this prediction, Kirsten, but let's talk about, we know, we used the word authentic earlier through one of Mark's predictions. When you talk about people being their authentic selves, you can have a person in a company to whom you're trying to start a relationship and eventually sell something. They might be on Instagram and Snapchat and Pinterest and Facebook, in addition to being on LinkedIn. So there should be possibly a blending of your message on all of those platforms, Kirsten. So how do you divide that, if you will, that Maginot line between B2B and B2C when you're doing your outreach for your company? What's your thought?
I think that there is something to say around the fact that those platforms are kind of meant for, generally, I wouldn't say it's, there's not a hard line between the two by any means. But generally, LinkedIn is more of a B2B platform. Snapchat is definitely more B2C. However, as I think Mark put it quite well earlier, that he said, it depends on the persona that you're trying to speak to on the different platforms, and you adjust your messaging dependent on the platform and the persona and the audience that you're trying to speak to on that particular platform. So I think that there's a place for some of those B2C platforms in a B2B world. I think the B2B platforms like the LinkedIn has a harder time going on the B2C side, but it's definitely possible. But I tend to, when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm looking at, thinking about, this is my professional life, this is the interests I have from a professional standing. I'm not thinking about, I need to go out and buy a car, or I need to go out and buy a washer and dryer. I need to, I'm looking for the latest new shampoo that's going to be good for my curly hair. Like those kinds of things they don't cross my mind when I'm on LinkedIn. And I would think I would find those, if there was content around those kinds of things, I would find that out of context for myself. On the other hand, if I'm on Instagram, it's more of a blend of the two. I might be looking at content that is, more geared towards my professional life, but also have it blended in with some of the things that are more towards my personal life.
Thank you. Great answer. Nico, please, thoughts on what Kirsten just shared. Interesting topic. Go ahead, Nico.
But I have a lot to say about this, I think. And I agree with Kirsten a lot. But again, when I sat down and read through, Mark's and Kirsten's quotes and, prepared my own thoughts for this and my own experience with all of these platforms, I think it's a lot about norms in the society. And what I mean by that, so for example, when I started up my LinkedIn account in 2011, there was hardly any content on the platform. The only content that was on the platform was like, annual reports from CFOs and CEOs. And when I open up LinkedIn today, I see more and more of, Instagram image style that, sales reps and influencers are, trying to deliver a smart message, but the picture they have is actually a nice picture of themselves. So they drive towards that human vainness, if you would like to call it that. And those kind of posts get the most likes and comments in my newsfeed, actually, more than, the really interesting blog post that maybe Kirsten wrote about, sales enablement that is super much more important, but we're human beings and we have to take that into account. And when it comes to as an individual sales rep, I mean, what's stopping me from actually connecting with Kirsten Boyle at SAP on Instagram if I can find her name there, because I can direct message her there just as I can on Instagram or on LinkedIn, but she would probably be put off by it. But I hear more and more now that people are starting dating, that they just strike up conversation. We are looking at somebody's Insta story. So I think that this is all going to blend together. And I think that, we're starting to, the whole aspect of, your professional life and your personal life, it is really starting to blend together. And if I were to see just a picture of somebody from a fair that are talking about, okay, we're on this fair now on this week on LinkedIn, and that guy had a really nice suit on or a nice shirt, I would, I could think like, well, that's a nice suit. So I don't necessarily think that when we are on LinkedIn, we have a super set, mindset that can't be judged or altered. So something in those lines, basically.
Thank you. This is great. I didn't know where our conversation was going to go today, Kirsten and Nico, but I like this, and your point is so well taken. Nico, if somebody connects with me on LinkedIn, somebody I don't know, of course I look at their bio, I look at their company, I see what their profile is on LinkedIn to see whether A, is it a good fit, or B, would there be, I have any interest in knowing about them. And then I often will Google them and see what comes up. I'm not on Insta, I'm not on Pinterest. I'm a member, but I don't go there really. I will then Google them and see if they're on Facebook, and I'll look and see what do they do and what do they like and what kind of person are they, and do they have any sports interests, and do they have music interests? And I do want to know. So there is that interesting blending of, to be authentic, you need to be a person with a digital presence, right, Kirsten? Who are they really? Who are they really? Let me read Mark Hunter, who left us a few minutes ago. He didn't leave us. He had to go to another appointment. Mark, I have to be careful with language here. Mark Hunter is alive and well. Yay! Here's his prediction number 3. I think both of you will appreciate that. We only got 6 minutes left, but I want to read this one. He said, we will see a proliferation of smaller, niche-focused social media platforms as people tire of the extreme noise level the internet creates. I think we can just let that stand on its own, as I mentioned those 5 brand new shiny objects a few minutes ago. But Nico, before we wrap up, I want to read prediction number 2 from you. This was an interesting one, and we'll quickly go from you to Kirsten for her comments. You say, the data from social networks, will be harvested by even more companies. We already see how LinkedIn and Microsoft have integrated LinkedIn with its CRM dynamics. So, Nico, we're out there, aren't we? We are sharing data whether we like it or even know it or any in between blend. So is this a danger? Is this a good thing for companies looking to find out whether they could consider us a viable prospect? Nico?
I mean, it should be a good thing, because you should be able to communicate in a much more relevant and thoughtful way. I mean, the data that we have on LinkedIn is always up to date, and when you can mesh that with your CRM data, and when you can actually get, auto-updated, contacts that are, they're real, they're not just, some static data point that, my predecessor in this role left behind. So this data is going to be more and more valuable, and we need to be more thoughtful of actually how we, save our data, and as a company, even if you're a smaller or mid-sized company, how we actually harvest our data, because we can reap so much benefits from it if we just do it right. But it's a really tricky and hard question to ask, and I'm far from an expert from it. But the last year, I've been looking into so much more into data in my profession as a sales rep and a sales consultant, and more of my studies going forward is going to be around data and how we can integrate that more in our business side of things.
Thank you. Kirsten, quickly, can you comment on that? Harvesting data from social networks for business purposes. There's our blend again. What do you think, Kirsten?
It was something that I have been thinking about for a long time, is that, we as human beings, as consumers, we tend to get very defensive about, different platforms having that information on us. And yet, when it comes to the experiences that we expect, and it comes back, it goes back to that expectations that I mentioned in my very first prediction. The consumer expectation is that we deliver to them a very personalized, very relevant. They don't want to be distracted by noise, as Nico pointed out. The noise of social media is going to become so vast that people are going to want to turn it off. And how do you turn it off and yet still get those things that you want out of the interactions? In order for that to be delivered, you have to have the company that is targeting you needs to have the correct information so that they can send you the right experience. They know exactly what is going to be relevant for you, and they won't bombard you with stuff that is going to be irrelevant. And that's part of the reason why we get so much stuff that's irrelevant, because there's not enough information out there, or companies aren't leveraging the information properly to give us the right experience at the moment.
Thank you very much, both.
Thank you.
All great points. I really have enjoyed this conversation. I'm sorry Mark had to leave us, because I know he would have loved this too, but that's the way it goes. Kirsten, we're almost done. Any quick one-stop prediction, a one sentence on 2025 spinning that wheel? Will businesses still be using LinkedIn? What do you think, yes or no?
Yes, I believe businesses will still be using LinkedIn, and I believe that they will be delivering, I hope, they will be delivering those very targeted experiences and making customers happier that way.
Happier. I like that. Thank you. We want to be happier. Nico Lagerston, will it still be LinkedIn, or do you think there'll be a couple of ancillary platforms that will be equally popular as the blend from B2C, B2B back and forth will continue to increase? Nico, quick thoughts?
It will probably be LinkedIn, but I see a rise in video, and video is really what's. If we've been saying this for a lot of years now, it's going to be the next big thing, but. I'm a so big believer in video and what company can create from video, that it's a big opportunity for everyone out there. But LinkedIn will be around, I'm sure of it, especially now with one of the most healthiest, the most rich companies in the world, with Microsoft owning them. So, Bill Gates is a pretty smart man, and he knows what he's doing.
You think? Thank you very much. He still is. Yeah. Kirsten Boileau, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. I got you into a different game today, and I appreciate your flexibility and fluidity to flow with this. We had great information from you. Mark Hunter, wherever you are, giving your keynote somewhere. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining the beginning of the show. Nico Lagerston, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I hope the two of you will come back on Technology Revolution, the future of now, later in the year. Send me some topics you'd like to talk about, and we'll get you back, and we'll get Mark back, and we'll even add a fourth to the panel as usual. I want to thank Ryan Treasure at World Talk Radio, my co-producer. Love the intro, Ryan. Now. Aaron Keller, my engineer extraordinaire with nerves of steel just to work with me. And remember, everyone, people say the future is already here. No, it's not. That was yesterday's future. Today's future hasn't happened yet, so let's make it the best ever. Bonnie D. Graham signing off. Have a great day. Onward. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for Technology Revolution, the future of now. Mark your calendar to join host Bonnie D. Graham every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Voice America Business Channel to hear how technology is impacting your future now.